A significant topic concerning temple economics was recently brought to my attention by my very close friend, Dr. Vinayak Deshpande, an eminent economist and Vice Chancellor of a prestigious Indian university. According to Dr. Deshpande, temples in India are evolving into significant economic hubs, if you will, contributing more than 2% to the nation's overall GDP. The widespread governmental initiative to revitalize temples across the country raises a fundamental question, that is, how can spiritual and materialistic dimensions of life be theoretically integrated in a framework? Consequently, temple economics in India has become a prominent and often controversial subject of discussion. India's diverse spiritual centers, that is, temples, churches, and dargahs, are not merely places of worship but also significant hubs of economic and political activity. These institutions are major economic drivers, if you will. They generate substantial revenue through donations, offerings, and fees for all kinds of ceremonies. This wealth often fuels local economies, supporting a vast ecosystem of vendors, artisans, and service providers like flowers, incense, food, accommodation, transport. Religious tourism, especially pilgrimages, is a booming sector, contributing significantly to India's GDP and creating millions of jobs. Many religious bodies also own vast land and property, which they utilize for various purposes, including charitable initiatives and even agricultural development. On the political dimension, the political influence of these centers is undeniable. Religious institutions often serve as community focal points, providing a platform for leaders to engage with and mobilize their followers. Politicians frequently seek endorsements from religious figures and leverage religious sentiments for electoral gains, sometimes leading to vote bank politics, as we often see these days. The governance of religious institutions is also a recurring subject of debate, with varying degree of government control, particularly over Hindu temples, compared to the more autonomous administration of mosques and churches. This intervention often sparks discussions about religious freedom versus accountability and potential political interference. Let me talk about the impact on the society. Is the influence of religious institutions an integrating phenomenon or a dividing syndrome? This phenomenon presents a dual nature. On one hand, these centers can be integrating forces. They foster community spirit, promote cultural preservation, and often undertake extensive social welfare activities like providing education, healthcare, and charitable aid, benefiting people across different faiths. Festivals and shared celebrations often transcend religious boundaries, strengthening community ties and promoting interfaith dialogue. However, the economic and political dimension can also be a dividing instrument. The competition for resources and influence can exacerbate religious tensions and lead to communal polarization. Allegations of financial mismanagement and political exploitation of religious sites can erode trust and fuel resentment. Instances where religious identity is used for discriminatory practices or to incite violence highlight the divisive potential. In a sense, while India's spiritual centers play a crucial role in its socio-economic fabric and can promote harmony, their intricate relationship with economics and more critically politics means they can also at times contribute to societal divisions. The challenge lies in harnessing their potential, positive potential for community building and welfare, mitigating the risks of exploitation and polarization. Integrating spiritualism with materialistic life within a theoretical framework and then specifically address temple economics from various perspectives, including behavioral economics and the question of other religious institutions, has acquired great significance in recent times, and that possibly has motivated my friend, the Vice Chancellor, to raise this topic. Traditionally, economics has largely focused on material well-being, rational decision making, and the allocation of scarce resources to satisfy unlimited wants. Spiritualism, on the other hand, deals with non-material aspects of human existence, often emphasizing inner peace, altruism, community, and values beyond monetary gain. The challenge is to find a framework where these seemingly divergent domains can coexist and even reinforce each other. Let me offer few theoretical lenses through which we can integrate them. The first one is about what I call as human flourishing or well-being economics. This framework expands beyond GDP to include factors like happiness, community cohesion, mental health, and environmental sustainability. Spiritual practices and institutions, by fostering a sense of purpose, belonging, and moral conduct, can directly contribute to these non-material aspects of well-being, which in turn can positively impact economic productivity and stability, like lower crime rates, stronger social capital, reduced healthcare cost due to stress, and so on. The second aspect would be on social capital. Temples and other religious institutions are significant producers of social capital. How? They build trust, foster reciprocity, and create networks within communities. This social capital can then facilitate economic transactions, reduce transaction cost, and enable collective action for community development, even if the primary motivation remains spiritual. Let me talk about behavioral economics. Behavioral economics recognizes that human decisions are often influenced by cognitive biases, emotions, and social norms, not just pure rationality. Spiritual beliefs and practices provide strong normative framework and emotional anchors. How? The first one is the pro-social behavior. We all know that religious teachings often encourage generosity, charity, and community services. This translates into donations, volunteering, and support for temple-led welfare activities. Let me talk about framing effects. The spiritual context of a donation, that is contributing to a sacred cause and earning punya or merit, can influence the willingness to give more, even if it's a transfer of wealth in economic terms. Let me talk about the endowment effect in behavior economics. Devotees may feel a stronger sense of ownership and attachment to temples and their activities due to their spiritual connection, leading to greater commitment and investment of financial and other resources. Let me talk about anchoring and herding. These are the concepts of in behavioral economics. Prominent figures or established norms within a religious community can anchor donations and donation levels or participation, and individuals might herd by following the actions of others in their community. And lastly, let me talk about the moral licensing. Engaging in spiritual acts, spiritual pursuits might lead to a sense of moral licensing, where individuals feel justified in pursuing material gains, knowing they are also contributing to spiritual causes. We all know how for Lord Balaji, he becomes the 13th player in the board of several companies. Let me talk a little bit about what I call as a cultural economics. This framework, in my view, emphasizes the economic value of our cultural heritage, traditions, and symbolic goods. Temples are not just places of worship, but also repositories of art, architecture, music, and traditional knowledge. Very recently, I went to Chennai, and there is a famous Kapalishwara temple in Mylapore, and I saw that in the evening, prominent artists come there and perform, singing, dancing, and so on. Their preservation and promotion have economic value through tourism, cultural industries, and the transmission of skills. Let me talk about what I call as the capability approach. This approach focuses on expanding people's capabilities and freedoms. Religious institutions, by providing education, healthcare, social support, and a sense of dignity, can enhance the capabilities of individuals and communities, thereby enabling them to participate more effectively in economic life. Temple economics, the word which I have been using quite often here in India, refers to the multifaceted economic activities and impacts generated by Hindu temples. It is not just about direct revenue, but the entire ecosystem that flourishes around these spiritual hubs. Estimates suggest the temple economy in India is valued at a staggering $72 billion annually, making it one of the largest economic activities in the country. Here is a breakdown of its various aspects. Let me talk about the revenue generation in terms of donations and offerings. And the people transfer their wealth they form the primary financial base. This wealth, once pooled, is then utilized for various social activities. There are fees for rituals and services like pujas, archanas, special darshans, weddings, and like other religious ceremonies generate significant income. Many large temples operate guest houses, canteens, shops selling religious paraphernalia like idols, books, and prasad, and so on, and even agricultural lands or businesses. Then there is this asset management. Temples often own vast and huge tracts of land. They have gold and other assets which, if managed effectively, can generate tremendous revenue. It is right to say that donations per se don't produce new goods or services. However, the utilization of these donations and the activities around temples create immense value addition. How? By providing direct employment. Priests, temple staff, administrators, security personnel, cleaners, cooks for langars. The temples have community kitchens, musicians, artisans, flower vendors, idol makers, small shopkeepers, guides, rickshaw pullers, taxi drivers. The list is endless. The list of direct employment generated is extensive. A small temple can employ 25 individuals, while major ones can employ in thousands. Tourism, what we call as a pilgrimage tourism. This is a huge driver because the pilgrims spend on accommodation in hotels, guest houses, lodges, and so on. Then food, restaurants, street food vendors, transportation, taxis, buses, trains, airlines, local goods and services like souvenirs, religious items, local handicrafts, flowers, offerings. Then the infrastructure development, building roads, railways, airports, sanitation, healthcare facilities. These are all developed or upgraded due to pilgrim traffic. A case in point recently is the temple building of Ayodhya or of Lord Rama. Then the aspect of arts and crafts patronage. Temples have historically been and continue to be patrons of traditional arts like sculpture, painting, music, dance, textile weaving, so on. This supports artisans and preserve our priceless cultural heritage, creating unique goods with economic values. Then let me talk about the social welfare and community services. Many temples run hospitals, dispensaries, provide medical aid, education. They operate schools, colleges, and provide religious and secular education. Then food distribution in the form of langar and annadanam. This initiative feed millions, addressing food insecurity. Then let me talk about disaster relief. Temples often play a crucial role in providing relief and rehabilitation during natural calamities. Skill development. Traditional crafts associated with temples often involve training and skill transfer. Let me talk about briefly on the historical role of the financial institutions. In ancient and medieval India, temples often functioned as banks, providing loans, managing endowments, and facilitating trade, contributing to regional economic stability. While this direct role is less pronounced today, their large asset bases still represent significant economic power. Cultural preservation and promotion is an important activity of temple administration. How? By maintaining ancient rituals, tradition, architecture, and art forms, temples contribute to the cultural wealth of the nation. Let me touch upon the behavioral economics lens on the temple economics. Devotees feel a sense of reciprocity towards the divine and the institution that facilitates their spiritual experience, leading to continued donations and participation. The trust in the temple's sanctity and perceived good works in the form of more donations. Then donations, especially large ones, can confer social status and recognition within the community. Birlas have contributed to building large temples in many parts of the country. Then there is the emotional connection. The deep emotional and spiritual connection to a deity or a sacred space can override purely rational economic decisions, leading to generous giving. Then what about the nudges and defaults? The way offerings are solicited, like prominent donation boxes, suggested donation amounts for specific rituals, can influence the giving behavior. And lastly, the community identity and belonging. Temples provide a strong sense of community and belonging, which can influence consumption pattern, that is, buying from local vendors associated with the temple, and encourage collective economic activities. Historically, temples in India, especially I am talking about Hindu temples, were vast landowners, patrons of arts, and centers of learning and administration, accumulating significant wealth and influence over centuries. Their sheer number and geographical spread are immense, making their collective economic impact substantial. I talked about the pilgrimage tourism. The pilgrimage culture in Hinduism is deeply ingrained and involves massive numbers of people traveling to various sacred sites throughout the year. Char Dham Yatra, as we know, people suffer hardship but perform the Char Dham Yatra, or the Kumbh Mela, the case in point, directly fueling a vast tourism and ancillary economy. A significant number of prominent Hindu temples are under state government control, and this is a bit controversial, leading to greater public discourse about their finances and management. This often doesn't apply to mosques, churches, or gurudwaras, which are largely managed by their respective communities. There has been a visible push from the current government to revive and promote temple tourism and infrastructure, contributing to the increased visibility of temple economics. Projects like Kashi Vishwanath Corridor and the Ram Mandir in Ayodhya, which I talked about, are prime examples, demonstrating a clear focus on leveraging these sites for economic development and cultural pride. It is crucial to acknowledge that other religious institutions also make significant economic contributions, though they might not always be termed church economics or gurudwara economics in the same widespread manner. Let me talk about churches. They have done significant work in terms of education and healthcare. Churches in India have historically been and continue to be major players in providing education, vocational education, school education, college education, healthcare in the form of hospitals, clinics, services particularly in rural and undeserved areas. These are significant economic activities providing employment and services. Many churches engage in extensive social work, including orphanages, old age homes, and disaster relief, supported by donations and grants. The churches foster strong economic network and often support small scale local economies through their congregations. Let me talk about gurudwaras. They have what is popularly known as langar, community kitchens. This is a hallmark of gurudwaras, providing free meals to millions daily, regardless of faith. This massive operation involves purchasing food, employing cooks, and managing volunteers, representing a significant economic activity even if it is not profit driven. Then there are community services. We know many gurudwaras offer accommodation for pilgrims, educational facilities, and charitable aid. Prominent gurudwaras like the Golden Temple in Amritsar are major tourist attractions, drawing millions and boosting local economies through hospitality, transport, and local businesses. Let me touch upon the Sufi shrines, often known as dargahs. Dargahs like Ajmer Sharif attract millions of devotees from all over the world, stimulating local economies through hospitality, transport, and the sale of offerings, handicrafts, Qawwali music cassettes, and so on. They serve as centers for cultural exchange and the preservation of Sufi music and tradition. Historically, we know dargahs were also centers for learning, dispute resolution, and community welfare. While all religious institutions, in my view, contribute, the scale and public profile of economic activities surrounding large Hindu temples, coupled with government initiatives and the deep-rooted pilgrimage tradition embedded in the Hindu psyche, have likely brought temple economics into the forefront of public discourse. The financial models and the governance structure of these institutions differ naturally significantly. Temple economics, and therefore let me conclude, temple economics in India is a complex phenomenon that goes far beyond simple wealth transfer. It represents a significant and growing part of the Indian economy, driven by spiritual devotion but manifesting in tangible economic activities like tourism, employment, and a patronage of arts and social welfare. Integrating spiritual and materialistic life in this context means recognizing that deeply held belief systems and practices can be very powerful motivators for economic activity and community building, leading to both material and non-material well-being. While the focus has been on temples, it is essential to acknowledge and analyze the diverse economic contributions of all religious institutions in India's secular fabric. Thank you very much.